All right. Wait a minute. Oh, that's it. Right. Okay. Now, I heard somebody else coming. Oh, here we go. There we go. All right. Lovely. Hi, everyone. That's grand. Now, let's just start off with our tefillah. Okay. Oh my, it is. Okay. Oh, I can share my screen, can't I? Nice, I actually remembered what I was doing. There we go. Right. ריבון עולמים, ואדוני אדונים, אב הרחמן והסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, וקידה בשתחוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומחיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה. על כן, אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לבינך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הראל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך כרך ניחוח. תאציל עלינו אור מקום נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית את דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבן לקשר בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמו אמר נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיניי והביט הנפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני תן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לו רצונים מפי, ויגון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגומר. Master of the universe and Lord of lords, Father of mercy and forgiveness, we give thanks before you, O Lord our God and God of our fathers, and bowing our head and prostration that you brought us close to your Torah and to your service, the holiest of services, and you've given to us a portion of your inner meanings of your holy Torah. What are we and what is our life that you've dealt with us such a great loving kindness as this? Therefore we lay a supplication before you that you forgive and pardon all our sins and iniquities, and do not let our iniquities separate us from you. And may it be your will, O Lord our God and God of our fathers, that you prepare our hearts to have reverence of you and love of you. And may your ears listen to these our words. Open our uncircumcised heart in the inner meanings of your Torah. And may this our learning give pleasure before the throne of your glory as a sweet-smelling fragrance. Bestow upon us the light of the source of our soul in all its aspects. And may the sparks of your holy servants, to whom you reveal your words into the world, shine forth. And may their merit and the merit of their fathers, the merit of their Torah, their wholeness and holiness stand by us, that we do not stumble in these words. And through their merit enlighten our eyes on what we are learning. As a sweet singer of Israel said, open my eyes and I will look on the wonders of your Torah. For the Lord gives wisdom from his mouth, knowledge and understanding. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Okay, great. Wonderful. Okay, welcome everybody. Happy Hanukkah. Hanukkah Sameach. Now, we've got some lovely learning today. I did a lot of scanning. I just have to reopen it again because I had to restart my computer. Right, now, where is it all? In your name, Hanukkah. We'll start off with this sort of short pieces about Hanukkah, which are a collection of nice little short things, all right, which are very, very interesting. Okay. Inyanei Hanukkah. Oh, wait a minute, can you see that? Probably not. I think I forgot to share my screen. There you go. That's better. Inyanei Hanukkah. This is from the writings or teachings, letters of Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag. I couldn't find much written by Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, the Baal by Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag, who of course heard it all from his father and wrote it down at different times in his life. Okay, so little different tidbits about Hanukkah. We've been, we had a long session on Hanukkah last time, and we're way into Hanukkah now. So now we're going to look at different aspects. Ner Hanukkah, shiuro ad shetachale regel min hashuk. So when do we light the Hanukkah candle? We light it from the time the sun sets until the last person has left the market, okay? Now, this is from the laws of Hanukkah in the Gemara. Regel, milashon, maragel. Now, what is it? Why didn't it say the last person who's left the marketplace? Okay, why does it say regel? What's the particular issue of a regel? A regel is a foot, okay? But it's also the language of meragel, a spy. Yeah, remember the spies who went to spy out the land of Israel? Okay, and the shuk is the marketplace. There's lots and lots and lots of people. Reshut Rabim, the public domain. So what has this got to do with us? What's this got to do with Hanukkah at all? Okay, so the spies is our, what we want is we want to we have two parts of ourselves. We have our wills to receive, okay, which want to receive knowledge, information, certainty, that's the Greek side of ourselves, okay? And then there's the Jewish side of ourselves, which is prepared to go in trust, in faith, like Lech Tech Acharai B'Midbar Be'eretz Lo Zuah, how the children of Israel went after God in the wilderness, okay, without knowing where they were going, okay, just following God blindly, all right? So trusting in God. So you've got these two parts of ourselves. You can call them the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Hatov. You can call them the Guf and the Neshama. We're made up of these two paradoxes. Here, Rav Ashlag is looking at them as Reshut Rabim, okay, with lots of desires, lots of wants, and the Reshut Yachid, which is God's domain, the one domain of God, okay. So, what is it talking about the Ner Hanukkah? What is the Hanukkah? Why do we light the Ner Hanukkah? It needs to be when the last spy, the last regel of our will to receive has left the marketplace, when we're no longer looking to see philosophy, not there's something wrong with philosophy per se if we just read philosophy, but what it means by philosophy is the way of life which is based on knowledge, science, technology, without any place for faith and trust in God, okay? Because when we're in the domain of God, the Reshut Yachid, then we're going in wholeness, going in faith. Ein makom l'margelim, and there is no place for spies, like, why am I doing this, or should I be doing that, and what will happen if I do this, and what will I get if I do the other? Those are our inner spies, okay? And on Hanukkah, what do we need to bring? We need to bring the light of faith in God. That's the light of Hanukkah. Until all those aspects of our inner spies have left us, okay? Ki b'makom ha'or ein makom lesitra achra. Because when we have that place of that light in our heart, in our consciousness, then there's no place for the will to receive for itself alone, no place for the other side, no place for those spies to operate. Okay, so I thought this was a very nice little sort of paragraph about looking to see how the Hanukkah light can just go into our hearts and calm it all down. And, you know, all the worries about what will be and how to do and all those sort of things, okay? And let it all and go into that place of that unity, which is God's domain, which is domain of faith in him, that everything comes from him and everything's happening from him and everything is therefore ultimately good. Okay, and so we need to light that light of Hanukkah, all right, when the sun's gone down, which is when we no longer can see the light of God. Okay, it means Ki'ilu when this, not literally, because the light of God is shining all the time, but the symbolism is that when we're feeling, you know, not connected or something, when the sun sets, until all those doubts have left us, okay? And that's the time we light the Hanukkah candle to bring that light of faith into our hearts. Okay, any questions? Any comments? Rav Gottlieb writes it like this. What Rabbi Ashlag wants to say is that in the domain of God, of the one, when a person is governed only by the desire to give, which is faith in God. And then there is no place for the will to receive, to wake up and to spy after the conduct of God. Is it good or isn't it good? Okay. And there's no place for the will to receive, to govern and to try to understand from his logic how God behaves. Because it's a tremendous mistake. I was talking about this with a friend today. It's a tremendous mistake to imagine that the way we think and act is the way God thinks and acts, Ki'ilu. All right? There's an angel called Dome, all right, Duma or something, Dome. And he's the angel who is in the Zohar, who's described as being the angel in charge of hell. All right. And what's the hell? He's not talking about some place, God forbid, we go to after we die. It's the hell we live in when we imagine that God's ways are our ways, that God's ways are domim, like our ways, that God is like a human being. Okay. And it's a very common thing that we actually project onto God, the way we think and feel. And we really need to sort of say, wait a minute, I don't need to do that. I don't need to look and see, is God acting in the way that I would like or I would want? Okay, that would be the spies. Okay, I need to simply know, like have that faith that God's way is not my way. And I need to have faith above the paradigm of knowledge, okay, that in that, having that trust in him. And that actually is the light of the Hanukkah candle. And in the place of the light, okay, then a person simply, when it just wants to let go and allow that faith of his to shine forth, okay, and then there's no more place for the spies. All right, great. לשנה אחרת, קבעום בהלל ובהודאה. Now in the Gemara, when it talks about how the Greeks came and they into the temple and they defiled the oil, and the children of the Maccabees went in and they found this one little jug of oil left, which was still left with the seal of the Kohen Gadol, and it lasted, when they lit it, it was only enough for one day, but it lasted for 8 days. And at the end of that description, it says, and for the following year, they fixed these days for Hallel and Thanksgiving. Right. So Rabbi Ashlag asked an interesting question. He says, well, why did they wait for the following year? All right. Why not give thanks there and then? And the answer is, I'm not sure personally that I quite understand this, but I'm showing it with you anyhow, and you can take it or leave it. Because in the very first year, in that moment, when they were victorious, because of the miracle and the clarity and the light which was shining for them, they were inevitably united, so united with the Creator, that they became as if one body, as it were, with the Creator. Actually, in such a dveikut, in such a unity with Him, that they did not need to fix special prayers of praise and thanksgiving, because the praise and thanksgiving would just simply happen naturally. They didn't need to fix time. You have to say this, you have to say that. It was just like they're there, they're one, they're united with God. But on the following year, when they've left that immediate consciousness, then they do need to make that special, decision, all right, to do it consciously. I think, I remember the 6-day war. I was about 12, I think, at the time. And, the fear beforehand, it was tremendous. I wasn't in Israel at that time. I was still at 12. I was still living in London with my parents. And, we saw these horrific films, clips of the Egyptians, marching in the streets and yelling death to the Jews and all that sort of stuff before the war. And it was very frightening. And the miracle of what happened was just extraordinary. It was unbelievable, and the relief was unbelievable. And I think the outpouring of praise and thanks was just so natural. We didn't even have to think about it. But then eventually, of course, the state of Israel fixed that. We would have Yom Ha'atzmaut is a day of thanksgiving, and Yom Yerushalayim, okay, the day when Jerusalem was liberated, in which we also say Hallel. Okay, so for the following year, they did need to fix a time or fix these specific days, and likboa. And what is likboa to fix? Like to really fix it strongly, like as if you're fixing a sign on the wall with nails, so it's not going to move. But Hallel uvahoda'ah, in a conscious way, to say Hallel and thanksgiving. Shiyudvukim b'Hashem alidei hoda'ah, and this way they would again reunite with that, get that a unity that they had at that moment when they found the oil. We would again through the prayers, through the thanks, through the Hallel, okay, especially through the Hallel, we reunite with God, okay, in that same way. So each year we have the opportunity to recreate this level of unity with God. Okay. All right. Any questions? Everybody all right there? Okay. Or you can call out with the comments, whatever you want to do. Pilpulei de Hanukkah, Lonis Karuba Mishnayot. The rules of Hanukkah are not mentioned in the Mishnah. This is very interesting. In fact, if you look in the Mishnah, you're going to find anything at all about Hanukkah at all. It's actually all the discussion about Hanukkah, what is Hanukkah, etc., is only in the Gemara. And it's from a part of the Gemara called a Baraita. Baraita means outside, an external part of the Mishnah. Historically, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was the one who went around collecting up the old tradition. It was a time of tremendous upheaval in the country after the second temple had been destroyed, and the Romans were in the country. It was about 100 years after that, I think. Anyhow, it was a tremendous mess, and there was a great fear that the old tradition would be lost because of the disruption. So this was why he went around and collected up the old tradition and wrote it down. And so he basically was the one who decided which aspects went into the Mishnah and which didn't. Okay, but he didn't throw the other aspects out. He kept them as what's called Baraitas. All right. So in fact, we actually find that the Mishnah itself has got no mention of the Hanukkah, only the Gemara from a Baraita. Baraita means outside the Mishnah. So he says, even though there really is a disagreement between Shammai and Beit Hillel, it's a well-known disagreement, okay? What's the disagreement? Shammai says we should start off with 8 candles, okay? And on the second day light 7, and the third day light 6, and the fourth day light 5, etc., etc. Okay, and go down that way. All right. That's the, right. No, he's going to talk about that in the next bit. Sorry, okay. But there is a difference of agreement between Shammai and Beit Hillel. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. But here he wants to talk about that the Mishnah, who said Pnimiut Olam. The Mishnah deals with the Pnimiut, how the world functions, how the world needs to function from its inner aspect. So Hanukkah is not mentioned there. It's only mentioned in the external aspect. Because the issue of Hanukkah is to hint that the most important aspect is that the light needs needs to go down to the darkest places. The light needs to l'shalshel hakdusha, to bring that holiness, to give light outside in the vessels of receiving, in the darkest places. So we can really, really use the Hanukkah light to calm. You can take it outside, we can take it in, inside ourselves. We've got parts of ourselves which are connected with God, and we've got parts of ourselves which are less connected. It says that every single person is a tzibor, okay, a community all on his own. Tzaddik, Beinoni, V'Rasha. Inside each one of us, we've got the tzaddik part of ourselves, we've got the Beinoni part of ourselves, and we've got the Rasha part of ourselves. We've got the more mature parts of ourselves, we've got the less mature parts of ourselves. And so what we can do is the light of Hanukkah, we can really take it into our hearts and allow its holiness to penetrate into the hardest vessels. And in fact, I was wondering today, what was the essence of the light of Hanukkah? And I wrote a quick email to Rabbi Gottlieb to ask him. And he wrote back and he said that in the Beit Shah Kavanot of the Holy Ari, we're told that the essence of the light of Hanukkah is to do with the Sfirot of Netzach and Hod. And that's exactly what he's saying here. Netzach and Hod are the lowest vessels of the Sfirot, among the lowest vessels of the Sfirot, okay? Which is to bring that light down into those darker vessels, and therefore it's a very strong light, okay? The light of miracle, the light of redemption. This is why it's such a strong light, okay? And it's there to penetrate the outside aspects of ourselves, which is our wills to receive, okay? To correct them, it doesn't correct them completely. Hanukkah is not Purim. On Purim, they're corrected completely. Hanukkah, the point of Hanukkah is actually to wrap the light, wrap the vessels in the light of faith, in the light of giving, okay? It doesn't actually correct the wills to receive for themselves alone completely, not like Purim does, but it's more to give that light of giving to it, okay? It's a slight difference. Oh, yeah, there's a Reish Mem here. Wait a minute, what does it say? Here we go. Explanation. To bring the holiness to the external vessels, to those vessels which are outside of Kedusha, okay, which are the wills to receive for ourselves alone. Until they don't have a presence within us because they're nullified before the greatness of God. Okay, so that the great light should also shine to this external vessels, and this we actuate in our way we light the Hanukkah candles, because we put them on the windowsill or we put them outside, okay, so we can actually give it to the passers-by. Pilsume de Nisa. In fact, it was very nice. I was coming home from the supermarket. I went a little bit late, and on my way home, there was a young family had got their Hanukkah candles in one of these sort of glass boxes on a little bench outside their home, and they were just lighting the Hanukkah candles as I passed by them. And it was very, very nice. I really felt it was a true Pirsuma Nisa, that they were, publicizing the miracle outside. So you have the external action, which is to actually publicize the miracle outside, and the inner correspondence is to allow that light of Hanukkah to penetrate the places of doubt, the places of fear, the places of depression, all those places of our sadness, of our wills to receive ourselves alone, and to allow those to be healed through the great light of Hanukkah, okay? Because it's such a holy light that it can really penetrate and come in and heal those places. All right, great. Now, Da'at Beit Shammai. All right, we all know the order of Hillel. We do it. We all do that. We start on day one, and we, have one candle, and day two candles, and then you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's the way of Hillel. All right, but Shammai had another idea. Okay, Beit Shammai, he said no. We should do it pochet v'holech. We should start off with 8 on the first day, 7 on the second day, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Well, Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, both of them are Divrei Elohim Chaim. Both of them are the words of the living God, but it's a different perspective. Okay. So what's his perspective? So the Chag, which is considered the most similar to Hanukkah, is Sukkot. All right. Sukkot is considered quite similar to Hanukkah, both in the type of light it has, and you can see that also by the fact that only Sukkot and Hanukkah are the only festivals where we say whole Hallel every single day. okay, for 8 days running, actually. Yes, we do say whole Hallel on the first day of Pesach, but not the rest of Pesach. And we say a whole Hallel on Shavuot, which is only 1 day. But to actually say Hallel every single day, the whole Hallel with the brachot and everything, and all the bits, in there. The only other time is Sukkot and Hanukkah. That's the only 2 times. Okay, so that's really interesting, isn't it? So there's this connection. Okay, so what does Shammai say? He says you should start off with more and do less each time. Komo parei hachag, like the offerings of which are given up in the temple on Sukkot. And I think they start off with 13 on the first day, 12 on the second day, and so on and so forth, going down. That's the way they do the offerings, the korbanot, on Sukkot. And eventually they reach it all adds up that they've given 70 bullocks over Sukkot. And these are bullocks korbanot, which are offered for the other nations. Okay, the 7 days of Sukkot are for the other nations, and the last day is for Shmini Atzeret, is for Am Yisrael. Okay, so he says pochet v'holech, like the bullocks of the offerings on Sukkot. And the hint is that by the holiness, the external aspects, our wills to receive for ourselves alone, the darkness around, is more and more pushed away, and they are therefore need less each time. Whereas Beit Hillel says Mosif Holech, no, each time we go up in holiness and not down. We start off with 1, go on 2, etc. And Oem is Wala Kedusha. So Hillel's looking at how the holiness increases. Shammai is looking at how the negative decreases. Okay, it just depends on your perspective. All right. So, but the way that we do, of course, the halacha is like Hillel, to increase the holiness in the way of we go up in holiness each time. Okay. Right. Upatsu chomot migdolai. Thanks, I just had a drink. Patsu chomot migdolai. Yes, this is from Mao's Tzor, isn't it? The Greeks burst through the walls of my towers. Inyan choma. What's a wall? A wall is the Hainushim Shmira. It's a place which is a way of guarding something. Leval yikanezar letoch hamigdal, so no stranger will come into the tower. What tower are we talking about? Okay. Inyan hamigdal, ayno kedusha nikret migdal malei kol tuf. This is comes from a midrash, okay, in which all the goodness that God wants to give us, okay, is symbolized as a tower filled with all good. Now, where is this tower filled with all good? In our soul. Each person has that potential in the soul to contain this tower filled with all good. All right, we have that soul within us, and we have the potential of this tower filled with all good, which is the knowledge of God. Okay, and each one deep within us actually has that. The only question is, do we access this or not? All right, so we have this tower of holiness, this tower of filled with all good. It's the knowledge of God deep within ourselves. Okay. So what's this wall? The wall is this guard we have that no foreign thought can come in and hurt our tower. What is the foreign thought? What we talked about earlier, the Greeks, okay? They want to know everything, they want to categorize everything, they want to understand with our minds, with our logic, okay? And we really see this, that, the Sitra Achra, which looks so glittery on the outside, the fantastic technological world we live in, all right, it looks so glittering and so alluring on the outside, but inside it's empty, okay? The Sitra Achra it's simply empty. Inside there isn't anything there. And that's why people, when we get involved, and we all of it, and we do all of us do this, okay? We fall down and we get, taken by the Sitra Achra every so often, okay? And what do we find? It's unsatisfying. We inside it, there's nothing there, okay? And then we realize, and we come back to Kedusha again, Be'ezrat Hashem, okay? The Choma, which is our faith, makes a defined space, or makes a border, makes a definition, all right? What is in the area of Kedusha, okay? And what is an area of Kedusha? It's emunah, it's faith. Nikra tuchum, how do you say that in English? A designated area, a border, okay? And it puts a border on our rational mind. It says, okay, our rational mind can only go up to so far. Then we have to simply jump into bitachon b'Hashem, trusting in God, okay? And moving forwards in trust. And this is also called the sign of the Holy Covenant. Okay, Reish Mem Aleph. Here we have it, Rabbi Gottlieb. Nimtza she'emunah mukuna Aleph, chomat, tchum, and chotem. We find that faith is called a wall, a area, and a seal. These first two hint at a border. And our faith makes a borderline, the distinction between our rational thought, our external aspects of our will to receive, and the tower filled with all good, which is the presence of God within our heart. For faith, which is an aspect of giving, it's from a higher paradigm of consciousness than is the aspect of knowledge, which is one of receiving. Faith gives us the ability and the habituation of a person to go in the way of giving. And then there's no governance for the external elements to come and take from the light, the highest light, for the sake of receiving. And what is the idea that faith is called a chotem, a seal? It means that the external can't forge it, okay? Because a seal shows about how that something is genuine, okay? And the seal is faith. Whereas in a place which is empty of faith, the will to receive, I apologize, I translated wrong. When a place which is rectified in faith, the will to receive is not able to forge anything and to try to come into Kedusha, okay, and to do the work of serving God for the sake of receiving. Because if we've got faith in the mitzvot that we do, we're doing with a whole heart, or at least trying to do them with a whole heart. But if we're not doing it in faith, but we're doing it for social reasons, or for other reasons, then we're actually doing lighting our candles, whatever we're doing, in order to get something. All right, and that would be kind of like a forgery. So our faith keeps us in a lined up way. Goes on to talk about the Greeks here. Lavin madua ayavanim ratzu b'davka levatel milah b'Shabbat. Why did the Greeks want to nullify davka, those particular mitzvot, Brit Milah and Shabbat? Hinei Milah nikraot, v'Shabbat nikraot. Both Brit Milah is called a sign, and so is Shabbat called a sign. Oti leolam beini ubeinecha. Shakavanah Brit Kodesh. Okay. And so this is the holy covenant that we have between ourselves and God. Shabbat is also called a covenant. Shinyan Britu Emunah. And what is a Brit? What is a covenant? A covenant is what you make with somebody when everything's going well, okay? So that you know that you'll stick to it when things aren't going so well, all right? So like, what's the point of a covenant? Why do people sign a covenant or make a covenant? You've got, you have this all the time, with the story of Abraham, okay? That, it comes along Avimelech where they make a brit between them. What are they doing? What is a covenant about? So a covenant is like when you, for example, you stand under the chuppah with your husband, with the chatan, with the kala and the chatan stand under the chuppah. They're making a brit. They're making a covenant. At the moment, they're in love. Otherwise, they wouldn't be wanting to get married. Okay, but you know what happens in life, in married life. You have ups and you have downs, and the brit is there. The memory of the covenant is there. That the chuppah is binding them, so that when they're in the middle of a down, they don't just sort of say, "Okay, that's it, goodbye." Okay, no, you work through it. Okay, and hopefully you gain through it, and you remember the covenant that you were together. You're connected with each other. Okay, and that's what a brit is for. So same with that's why we have a brit with God. Okay, so that we have times when we are able to serve God, and times when we're not. Okay, but the brit keeps us on track. Okay, we ultimately know we are tied to each other. Both sides. We've got a covenant with God, and He's got a covenant with us. Okay. And from our side, the brit is through faith. And the hint is also what we say in the prayer that we begin with, that we circumcise, remove the circumcision of the foreskin of our heart. You circumcise the foreskin of the heart. Okay. But what is Ola? Ola is the will to receive for itself alone. Okay. So the heart should not be just, whatever I feel I want to do, I just do it. No, you let go of that will to receive for yourself alone. It's through faith that the person merits to come to that unity with God, which we spoke about at the beginning, which is what the light of Hanukkah candles gives us. And the klipa, which is called the will to receive, separates from the person. And then there's a place for the holiness to be there. So the Greeks, their work was rak levatel et ot emunah milah b'Shabbat. So what did the Greeks want to do? They wanted to nullify the sign of faith, which is Brit Milah and Shabbat. And to bring them into their cursed philosophy, he writes here. Okay. Now, why does he write cursed philosophy? Why? What's the big deal? Okay, somebody thinks something different. What's the big deal? the big deal is like this, is that if you look at Greek philosophy and you look at, a lot of it, it sounds all very good. I mean, it does sound good. These Greek philosophers, they worked out ethics, moralities. There's quite a lot of very good stuff in there. So what's the problem with it? All right. The problem is that we have to go in emunah. Okay. If we just go with our mortal brains, we're trying to make God, bring him down to human size. Do you see what I mean? We're trying to imagine God is simply a sort of a superhuman of some sort, okay? And then the philosophy would be working out how the world works according to this sort of human understanding, okay? And that denies hashgacha pratit, it denies the divine providence, it denies the hanhagat of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's sort of trying to bring God into a sort of a human form. That's what it's actually doing. And this is not the way of the Jew. The way of the Jew is emunah, is belief. We didn't receive ethics and morality through human knowledge. We received it through Gilui, through revelation on Har Sinai, Torah L'Moshe MiSinai. And however good the Greek philosophy is, it's definitely got its limitations. Okay, as we can see, I mean, the Western world, which basically is an offshoot of Greek philosophy, I mean, most of it based on Greek philosophy. I mean, look where it ended up with its philosophy, with the Nazis. I mean, it doesn't, that was a very, didn't get us anywhere, didn't get the world anywhere particularly, all right? So it's very limited. So this is why he calls it philosophia arura, cursed philosophy. Oh, somebody's put something in the chat. Isn't the problem paganism? Absolutely. Absolutely, Elaine, you're absolutely right. Of course it is, because that's actually what the Greeks did also, isn't it? I mean, when you've got the they Greeks put the graven images and had their Greek god, the whole pantheon of Greek gods. But that's just an external expression of an inner thing, which is that they simply saw, what, if you like, God, whichever way, they had lots of different Greek gods, but they just simply sing, the forces of the universe only in human terms. And you're absolutely right, that is paganism, totally. That's avodah zarah. Definitely. And emunah, the way of the Jew, emunah is completely different. It's totally different, because it's based on a totally different consciousness, which is a consciousness of giving our faith to Hashem. Hashem is good and does good and does not work. You can't reduce him down to this little size, working things out just by human minds alone. It's totally different. All right. This is called a wall. Philosophia. Oh, sorry, a wall. So the faith is called a wall. To the extent that they were able to bring in their philosophy, to that extent, the wall is breached. And I have to say that I do think that in our modern day, we have to be really careful here, because it's so easy to for Jews, in Israel, everywhere, it's so easy to forget the Jewish aspect. It really is easy to forget in the modern world. I think the material world, it's become such a difficult materialized world, and we're all so exposed to, this basic philosophy all the time, on the media all the time. It's all based on it. So it's so important, to immerse ourselves as much as possible in Jewish culture and the Jewish way, okay? Because otherwise, it's true, otherwise the Choma gets breached, okay? But what it, so it happened in the time of Hanukkah, that the Greeks, which was the first, I suppose, meeting with the Jews and this Greek civilization. And it's not surprising, I suppose, that, many Jews got taken in and they became Hellenizers, they were called, all right? Because it's much easier to you don't have this constant discussion going on inside yourself between the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. If you go the way of the Greeks, the Yetzer Hara agrees with the way of the Greeks, okay? Much more convenient, much easier. So to be a Hellenist was very tempting, okay? And nowadays as well, to go with one's logic is very tempting. To go with one's faith is very difficult, because the Yetzer HaTov, which is the way of faith, and the Yetzer Hara tend to conflict then. Okay, so the Greeks burst the walls of my towers and contaminated all the oil. The oil is the clarity and the light which is in Torah and the service of God, Torah and the mitzvot. And when the Greeks contaminate all the oils, then there's like stupidity and closing of all what is in holiness. Then a person doesn't feel that there's any life force in the Torah and the mitzvot. And they only found one little jar of oil, which was still left with the seal of the high priest, okay? Midat HaChesed. And although it only had enough oil for one day, a miracle happened, and it lasted for 8 days. Why 8 days? I think Nicole asked that last time. Okay, 1 second. Elaine, I'll answer that in a moment. Why 8 days? 8 days is from Malchut to Bina. Okay, the 8th Sfira is Bina, if you're counting from the bottom up. Okay, so 8 days, Yemei Bina, Yemei Shmona, Kavu Shionanim. Okay, Bina is the light of compassion. It's the light of giving. It's the light of giving unconditionally. And the wonderful thing about Sfira of Bina is that it gives unconditionally in all circumstances. Okay, it doesn't just give, when things are dark. It gives when things are light as well. All possible circumstances. It gives. It wants to do giving, and this is another aspect of the light of Hanukkah. That the light of Hanukkah there is an aspect of Gilui, of redemption, of the revelation of the light of God, of the miracle that happened. And the miracle can't happen unless there's unless God's presence is revealed to some extent. And so one of the aspects of Hanukkah is actually to bring the light of Hasidim, to bring that light of giving, to wrap that Giloi, that revelation of the light of God, to make sure we don't receive it with our wills to receive, but we only receive it for the sake of giving. And that's why we do Hallel, and that's why we light the candles, okay, and put them outside, and we don't use their light. Now, there was a question here in the chat. 1 second, let's go to the chat a moment. I've lost it. Where do I find the chat? I had it a minute ago. Chat, oh, here we are. Right. Elaine says, also in your book, you speak about 70 lights in the temple. What are those 70 lights and where do they emanate from exactly? Oh my goodness, that's in a piece of Zohar, isn't it? I think. Are you talking about in Tapestry for the Soul? I think that's a piece that I translated from Tapestry. That's, yeah, okay. So yeah, I remember that piece, but not very well, to be honest, right now. Those 70 lights, yeah. The thing is that when we talk about the Sfirot or the lights or anything like that, you've really got to look at the context, okay? Because the Sfirot are like letters of the alphabet, literally, all right? So they are in a context, in like a letter on its own doesn't mean anything. It's got to be in a word, and then a sentence, and then a paragraph. Okay, so Sfirot and lights also is the same thing. All right, you have to look at the whole paragraph. You have to look at the whole context, and then we'll see what they are. In general, the number 7 relates to Chesed, Gvur, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Okay, which is Malchut, which is the lowest 7 Sfirot. And each one has 10, because each one has 10 Sfirot inside of those. So the number 70 usually relates to the lowest 7 Sfirot. But precisely quite what was written there and why, you'd have to go into the whole paragraph to see, okay? Because the Sfirot themselves are like building bricks, they're like the letters of the alphabet. So on their own or out of context, they don't necessarily, not necessarily sure what they would mean. So I'd actually have to look that up. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Well, I think, oh, you're welcome. So, okay. So I think now that's probably time's up for now, but we've done, Baruch Hashem, 2 lessons on Hanukkah this year, which is more than I normally do. That's really amazing. All right. So I really want to wish everybody enjoy the rest of Hanukkah. Bezras Hashem, okay, and let that light just come into our hearts, all right, and lighten up all the dark places, okay, and have a lovely Shabbat and enjoy Shabbos Hanukkah. It's like 2 things all together, isn't it? Shabbos and Hanukkah together. It's so lovely. All right, so very good. Okay, happy Hanukkah, everyone. Okay, take care.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hanukkah Sameach. Okay. All right. Bye then.
Bye-bye.